What is up everyone, and welcome to another F122 My Team Career Mode video. We are going to be at the Monaco Grand Prix this time around, and I have to say I'm a little bit, I don't know, excited perhaps about this one, because I recently had taken part in a Monaco Grand Prix race in Formula 2 in my Twitch driver career series, which if you don't know about that, definitely go and follow my Twitch channel, because we've been doing that every week at the moment, and it's yeah, I don't know, it's pretty fun just to try something a little bit different. But that, you know, whilst it didn't actually go amazingly well, I felt like I had pretty good pace and I was driving pretty well around there. So yeah, I thought maybe the Monaco Grand Prix in my team career mode might go well as well. So yeah, I'm actually looking forward to this one somewhat. We come off the back of a pretty good Spanish Grand Prix in which we started P9, but we managed to make a significant recovery to P2. And yeah, I'm optimistic that perhaps we can, you know, maybe score some good points, maybe even a podium here, if we can find some good pace. You know, I've driven thousands of laps around the Monaco Grand Prix. Eventually, at some point, I have to develop some level of competency at it, I feel like. And I'm just hoping that here in Season 5 of My Team Career Mode in F122 is going to be the time that it finally comes around. You know, this is an iconic circuit, even if it's been slated in recent years for being a bit processional. The key is getting a good qualifying and then hoping that you can capitalize on that, not make any major mistakes. We got P10 in practice, which isn't amazing, but is certainly a little bit better than I was expecting, perhaps, based on my recent performances in practice compared to some of the other drivers around, you know, in places like Spain and even in Imola and places like that. You know, I was maybe getting like P15, P16, so to get P10 here shows that we might actually have a bit of a competitive edge in the car, you know, and those were Grand Prix that we ended up finishing in the podium, on the podium in, even if it was through a little bit of good fortune. Yeah, we're looking like we might be able to really contend for some strong points here as we move into qualifying now. Yeah, like I said, the aim, I think, I'm trying to think what the best sort of target here would be. I reckon, honestly, top 5 is pretty achievable if we can find some good pace here. I find I've been doing pretty well on the corner-heavy circuits recently, just because I don't know, in relation to the AI is always the same speed on the straights, but it's the difficulty really shines through in corner-heavy circuits. That shows how good the AI really is. And you can see now we're on our first flying lap. It's a 1:11.1. It's good enough to go fastest initially, but we are comparing ourselves to the likes of Joe, Stroll and Schumacher. So yeah, maybe not overly representative. And indeed, you can see as we come through the final corner now, we were actually in 17th at the end of the session had we not improved. We improved by 0.7 of a second up to a 1:10.4, and that is good enough to put us in P6 for this session. So yeah, very strong performance so far. You know, we're through to Q2 and we seem to have Q3 pace potentially on the cards. And yeah, Porsche's made it through in P8 as well. So a strong result for the team here in Q1, and hopefully we can capitalize on that and maybe move forward to start challenging those McLarens and Ferraris up front. You can see Albon was actually the driver who split myself and Porsche, so that would be incredible if the Williams was actually quite competitive here in Monaco, especially considering that thing has a reputation for being a fast car on engine power circuits, and this is pretty much the exact opposite of that. We move now into Q2. We start out on a used set of soft compound tyres this time, and you can see that my teammate has already done a 1:10.1. I'm going to go a bit slower here, do a 1:10.6 on the used tyres, which suggests to me that there is a little bit more pace in these tyres to improve in the following lap. And you can see that we are significantly up as we exit the final corner there, 7 or 8 tenths. It's going to be about 7 tenths. I think we got a not so good exit. We go to a 1:09.9, so we're into the 1:09s now, and that is good enough for P1 in Q2. And yeah, perhaps I'm in the hunt for pole position here. I didn't think that I would be, but if we can hook up a good lap in Q2, in Q3, I don't see why not. You know, Leclerc is out in his home Grand Prix qualifying, and that thing I was talking about last video, where quite frequently it seems like drivers have poor performances in their home race, whether it be myself, Verstappen, or Sainz or Leclerc. Leclerc has had exactly that here in qualifying at the Monaco Grand Prix. We do a 110.4 on used tyres to kick things off, and yeah, I think we're going to go around again. But what you will discover is that at the end of the session, it actually started to rain just a tiny bit, but just so much that it meant that the pace wasn't quite there. And yeah, we lost about a second over the course of the lap compared to our first flying lap, which meant that, yeah, a little bit disappointing. We still managed to come home in P5, which isn't too bad, but yeah, it's not necessarily quite what we would have wanted. You know, I was really thinking after Q2 we would have been able to get pole here, but I just fumbled the bag in the qualifying strategy. You can see that my Q2 best time would have been good enough for pole position there if I could have recreated that, but I couldn't do that, unfortunately. We have both McLarens qualifying ahead of me, and Norris on pole ahead of Porsche in P2, but some solace that we can see is that Red Bull, our 9th and 10th, our biggest rivals in the Constructors' Championship, are going to be on for very small amount of points here by the looks of things, unless they can capitalise on some incidents up front. And yeah, it's just it's not a, you know, if you'd have told me at the beginning of the weekend that we'd be qualifying P5, I would have taken it. I was thinking, honestly, I might even have struggled to get into Q2, not Q2, Q3, but yeah, we did at one moment look like we might have been a contender for pole position there, and I think that's why that sucks as much as it does, because I was really feeling like we had more potential than we ended up showing. But you know, you can't win all of them. It's just disappointing that things materialised that way. Still, we've got a driver in P2 in the team, in Théo Pourchaire. You know, that's a pretty good performance from him, all things considered, because he's not been fantastic recently. You know, my recent videos have kind of explored whether we need to potentially look at dropping him from the team. But if he can deliver a podium again here in Monaco like he did last season, then I definitely feel like we would have grounds to start perhaps entering into contract negotiations with him once again. But now it is time for us to get into the race.
A proper road race, and in the true meaning of the word. That's how Mr. Monaco, the late great Graham Hill, once described this iconic event. The cars we drive have come a long way in the intervening half-century, but still we race on those same public roads beside the Mediterranean. There's no victory more coveted than that of the Monaco Grand Prix. It's time to take a look at our starting grid for today's race. Lando Norris will lead us away from pole position, and Théo Pourchaire completes the front row. Considering the rest of the grid, we have Ricciardo, Sainz, Robinson, and Fernando Alonso, Gasly, Tsunoda, Perez, and Max Verstappen, Mick Schumacher, Russell, Alex Albon, and Leclerc, Oscar Piastri, Ocon, Nicholas Latifi, and Christian Lundgaard, Schwartzman, Joe, Magnussen, and Lance Stroll brings the grid to a close. It's almost time for the lights to go out, so let's head down to the track where preparations are underway.
After the points finished last race, let's aim to keep that momentum going.
And we will do exactly that, as things seem eerily silent here on the grid. But yeah, we're going to go on the default strategy, mediums to hards. I don't think soft medium would get us quite the full way around here. And yeah, we're going to see if we can potentially do what we did in the start of the race. I can't remember which season it was. Was it season 3, I think, where we jumped a few cars off at the start and managed to get our way up into P2. And yeah, that would be amazing in this scenario if we can get onto the podium again. We're going to try and get a good start here and see if we can get ahead of Sainz, but it's going to be tough. It's a pretty short run down to turn 1, which works in my favour because the longer a start straight goes on, the worse I look. So yeah, the start straight works in our favour here, but we're still going to have a good start if we want to get there, as the lights come on and the lights go out, and you can see that we have had a decent start, but Sainz is already moving over to the inside to try and cover us off. I'm going to try and move up his inside, but we have to make the corner. Don't get a corner cutting warning there. You can see we've held him up dramatically there, but we couldn't quite make the move stick on him, and we're having to settle back into P5 at the moment. We might have another opportunity to get him down at the very slow hairpin coming up, but for the time being, it's going to have to be P5. And yeah, we'll see if we can attack him now into this hairpin. We're going to try and go up round the outside of him, but we don't quite have the tyre grip to pull that off. We almost go understeering into the barrier, but not quite. And yeah, we hold on to P5, and that's probably the position that we're going to have to settle ourselves into for the remainder of the Grand Prix now, if I'm perfectly honest with you. You know, the only real overtaking opportunities on this race are on lap 1. We all know it. It's a very processional Grand Prix, and yeah, now I have to find the difficult task of trying to provide some semblance of entertainment to you for the next 38 laps. It's not the easiest thing in the world to do, but yeah, we'll see what we can do. I've been trying to keep off the curbs a tiny bit more here this Grand Prix than I usually do, just to try and avoid getting underbody damage. I got some floor damage in practice, and I said to myself, right, I'm going to try and not fall foul of the curbs, but it's much easier said than done. We move now to the end of lap 4, and we're going to be starting lap 5, and you can see that I have actually managed to stay within range of Carlos Sainz, even if we're not attacking him. We're staying within DRS range, which kind of shows that I have at least somewhat good pace here as we come on the run down towards Portier and through the tunnel. You can see that the gap is hovering around sort of 1 second or so. I think he's actually made up a bit of time on me on this particular lap and actually pulled out of my DRS range. So yeah, we're now just kind of settling into this sort of gap where Alonso's not in my DRS range, but I'm not in Sainz's DRS range either. And now you can see that that gap has become slightly more pronounced as we move on to the start of lap 10. And we're already a quarter of the way through this Grand Prix, nothing really happening so far, just Norris extending his lead out front, and then we've got the likes of Pourchaire in P2, Ricciardo, his teammate, Norris's teammate I should say, in P3, and Sainz and myself in P5. And then you've got further down the order Alonso, Gasly, then Tsunoda, and the 2 Red Bulls. I don't remember in which order, but yeah, both of the AlphaTauris beating the older brother team, if you will. They always describe AlphaTauri as the sister team to Red Bull. On this occasion, it seems to be the other way around. I'm sure you would agree that yeah, the AlphaTauris are having a much better Grand Prix, much better time of things. Tsunoda has been largely quite impressive in this series, I would say, bar a few sort of strange situations where he, you know, he's kind of looked a little bit off the pace, but generally he's been pretty mega. Yeah, the gap to Sainz is now increasing ever so slightly as we move further through the Grand Prix. I think Ricciardo and the entire front 3 are quite far ahead at this point as we move towards looking at the pit window. Now we're riding on board here with Pierre Gasly, and you're about to see that he's got some smoke pouring out the back of his car, and he is pulling off out of view and out of the Grand Prix, and that is the end of his Grand Prix. But yeah, we are now coming into the pits to set the hard compound tyres on our car for the remainder of the Grand Prix, and we're going to see if maybe now we're on the harder stint of tyres, we have any kind of pace to fire back at Carlos Sainz with. He was somewhat far ahead of us out of the you know, as we came into the pits, but we'll see. Maybe we can make up some time on him. It's going to remain to be seen what the case is. You can see that Latifi is not that far ahead of me, but hopefully as I do the tyre warm-up, that should be enough to allow me not to get caught up on the back of him before he pits as well. It should be this lap that he pits. I doubt I'll make up 2 seconds on him in 1 lap. So yeah, you can see now as we come round final corner to start lap 20, we're going to see where everyone shakes out. Tsunoda has stayed ahead of the Red Bulls, which is pretty impressive. Sainz is about 3 or 4 seconds ahead of me, I would say. Once the tyre warm-up effect kicks in, we'll find out exactly what the gap is, and I'll see if I can close it down. I've been doing a pretty good job so far of keeping off the curbs, but you know, as we move further and further through the race, even one little nick on the inside of the curbs is enough to give yourself significant floor damage, and then that can spell the end of your charge. So yeah, we now have a slightly altered top 10 now that Gasly is out of the race, with both bulls there. I think it's Perez ahead of Verstappen, but I could be wrong. And then P10 is a Haas. I think it's Mick Schumacher, but I might be incorrect about that. We'll have to wait and see what it turns out that is going to be. I don't know if you spotted it there. I didn't draw too much attention to it, but we do have a bit of floor and diffuser damage at this point from running over the curbs. I tried my best to avoid them, but on simulation damage, it's really difficult to do. So yeah, we're just kind of trying to struggle our way through now as we make our way towards lap 30. You can see that the gap to Sainz has come down to about 2 seconds or so. So there is a chance that in these last 10 laps I might be able to catch up to him. But even if I do, I just can't see a world in which I can overtake him. It's like Martin Brundle always says, catching is one thing, but passing is another. And yeah, that is going to be the adage of the day, I think, today, because I just don't see how we can I don't see how we can get ahead of him, even if we were to catch him. You know, the gap has stayed pretty consistent on that lap, maybe even grown a tiny bit. It just is not a track you can overtake at by any stretch of the imagination, and we are, you know, as we come now onto lap 37, you can see that the gap has increased again. I sustained a bit more damage, which has caused the gap behind to actually come down by a tiny bit. I think even if Alonso had caught us, we would be able to defend from him. You know, I've seen people with 6 gears out of a possible 8 win a Grand Prix around here before, so I'm pretty confident that even with a little bit of floor damage we'll be able to defend this position. But yeah, that killed pretty much just about any chances of us catching up to the likes of Sainz in front. And I think we just this whole Grand Prix have basically been having to settle into a rhythm which has ultimately ended up with us only being good enough for P5. You know, if we'd had a stronger qualifying, I'm sure we would have been able to defend whatever position we were in at that point. But unfortunately, we got kind of screwed over by the weather in that scenario. And now as we move on to the final lap of the Grand Prix, we are just going to try and bring it home. Try not to cause too much more damage, because I think we've pretty much written off any kind of bonus that we would get monetarily wise. Mick Schumacher is out of the session. That's actually very disappointing for him, because I think he was running in the points, and perhaps we can see what happened with him. So it looks like Verstappen in front of him was negotiating the back marker of Zhou Guanyu, who was getting out of the way. I think they might have hit each other actually, and that caused Verstappen to go off the track. And as Verstappen was rejoining the track, he hit Mick Schumacher, and as a result, Mick Schumacher sustained terminal damage on the penultimate lap of the Grand Prix, and that killed the potential for him to score points, just due to the fact that it's so difficult to overtake at this track that Verstappen couldn't even overtake a back marker without running into some issues of his own. You can see that, like I said, he I think picked up some damage as well, but was able to continue. But yeah, I think he might have pitted actually by the looks of things. I'm not 100% sure. It looked like there was only one Red Bull in that train behind, and I think Verstappen is a little bit further behind from what I can tell, as Norris has won the Grand Prix, actually close to lapping Verstappen at the end there. Pourchaire and Ricciardo come home in second and third, as Pourchaire scores another podium in Formula 1. I think his 4th at this point. I could be wrong about that. I mean, he might have had a couple more. Sainz is going to come home in P4, and we're going to round the final corner and cross the line to take a solid but not amazing P5 finish here in Monaco.
And that's the end of the race. See you in Parc Fermé.
It was a tough race at times, but they've held on to take a great victory for McLaren today. And talk to me, what do you think it was that sealed the win for them?
Well, this was a real team victory. They put together a solid strategy today that appeared well suited to the conditions out on track. The driver did everything that was expected of them in the moment to really execute the team's plan to perfection. A shining example of how F1 really is a team sport.
Our drivers are making their way out for the podium celebrations, and it's going to be McLaren picking up the winner's trophy. Congratulations to the entire team for that fantastic performance.
So, McLaren looking like they're actually a pretty strong team at this point. You know, we're seeing Ricciardo challenging for that final podium position in Spain as well, with Norris taking the win there as well. It's 2 races on the bounce that Norris has won at this stage, and yeah, it could be that he is potentially the other championship contender in this season, apart from myself. A not great result for us, which will allow Norris to gain on us a tiny bit. I actually think it was Perez, not Verstappen, that got caught up in that incident with Schumacher. Just looking at this top 10, Albon makes his way into a points-paying position, which is good news for him, and also Leclerc managed to score a few points as well. And yeah, we're 56 points clear of Perez at the top of the table as he failed to score, and yeah, we're 33 points ahead of Red Bull now, as we had 2 cars in the points for only, I think, the 2nd or 3rd time this season. To be honest, it's been pretty rough. You know, whenever Porsche has been failing to score points, it's been really damaging our chances of winning this Constructors' Championship. But he scored 18 here today, and that sees him make up quite a bit of ground in the championship. And if he can continue on a string of good results, then you know, I'd be more than happy to potentially talk about contract renewal. If he can find his way up to, like, I don't know, like somewhere between sort of 80 and 100 points, or more than that even, by the time the halfway mark of the season comes, I will be much more inclined to put pen to paper on another half a season with him than if he's still petering around on sort of 30-40 points, despite the fact that he's had 2 podium finishes. You know, it just shows that he's been very inconsistent so far. I really need him to step things up in the next few races before the halfway point of the season. We've got Azerbaijan up next, and then Canada, so a couple more street tracks, which, I mean, to be fair, he's been doing pretty well at these street tracks so far. He did well at Saudi Arabia, he did well at Monaco. Maybe he's just a street track inclined driver, in which case he'll be glad, because Singapore has made its way back onto the calendar this season, even if it is at the expense of Australia. And I'm trying to remember what else I subbed out. I can't actually remember what the other Grand Prix is. I think it might have been Mexico, but I could be wrong about that. And yeah, he's going to need to pick up some points if he wants me to be impressed with his form in Formula One. I still leading the championship quite a lot, and yeah, it's going to allow us to go into some circuits which have been historically quite weak for us, with a good amount of points ahead in the championship as we are at the moment. You know, we've got what is it next? Baku, which is not typically actually been that good of a race for me. You know, I like to pretend that it's one of my strongest circuits, but I think in this game they must have upped the way the AI drive it or something like that, because I really can't get a line on them, quite frankly. And yeah, we're gonna have to try and do what we can to contend with them. You know, we had a DNF there. I think it was season 3, if I remember correctly, when we were contending in the points, or maybe it was season 4. Oh, gosh, they all blur into one at this point. You know, it's been so many seasons. No, it wasn't season 4, because season 4 was the one where Leclerc had the issue and we came home. I think it was about 4th or something like that. We actually had a pretty strong result there. We got a podium there in season 2, but we had a DNF there in season 3, and season 1 was when that insane traction glitch was still a thing. So we got comprehensively destroyed in that Grand Prix. So yeah, if you take the pattern of good, bad, or no, it'll be bad, good, then the next Grand Prix that we have is going to be a bad one. So yeah, look forward to that. Azerbaijan Grand Prix up next. It's going to suck. We're going to do terribly. We're going to crash out on lap 1, and that is going to be it for this video. So if you enjoyed, make sure you like and subscribe, and hopefully I will see you in the next one.